and welcome to the Built Environment Marketing Show hosted by me, Aya Abbas. Today I am launching a mini-series that I'm doing all about how marketers are using AI. I wanted to know, real-world examples and find out the facts of what people are actually doing rather than what we're reading online. So that's what I've set out to do. Today we're going to kick off and we're going to have an interview with Stuart Wilks and Kristian talking about the positives and negatives of AI. And then the following couple of weeks afterwards, we will have the launch of a survey that I've done recently with marketers from across the piece, not just the built environment, talking about how they're using AI, their use cases, and also their concerns. So that's a really good, interesting read. I had a sample return of 72 responses, so that's a good sample size. I'm also going to be interviewing a number of people about their kind of specific use cases for AI. So how they've used it for content creation, how they've done it, used it for podcasts, all of that stuff, all of that good stuff that you can copy and learn. And finally, then I'm going to close that with an interview with one of the kind of AI gurus, who is fantastic, who I saw at Atomicon. I'm going to be interviewing Heather Murray as well. So that's going to close out the series. So there's a whole load of episodes coming up about AI. I hope you find them really interesting and useful. Just make sure you're subscribed to the show. And let's kick off the first part with an interview with Stuart and Kristian. Take care. Bye. Hello and welcome to the Built Environment Marketing Show. Firstly, can you introduce yourself, Stuart, and who you work for? And I guess one sentence that sums up what you think of AI.
Yeah, so our company's called Limeslade, which I set up about 8 years ago now, which seems ridiculous. Not a little bit before you, but not much. And we do marketing, business development and events for people in the built environment. Particular focus, I guess, on the kind of contractual, legal, project management, those kind of people. But all kinds of consultants. And my relationship with AI, I guess you'd say, is complicated. Should we say that?
Sounds like a proper relationship. And over to you, Kristian. Can you introduce yourself and your, relationship with AI?
Yeah, hi, everyone. My name's Kristian. I'm a paid social media expert and also offers marketing coaching, and I'm an AI speaker, which will probably make you think that my relationship with AI is probably a little bit less complicated with Stuart. I am basically incredibly curious and always looking to understand how it works. I like to see myself as an optimist, as to it being something that can really help our clients and our business be more productive.
Fantastic. Now, I know I've heard you speak about kind of AI at events as well, Kristian, and can you kind of walk me through something where you've used it successfully in terms of marketing?
Yeah, so for me, a great example of how I use it every day in my business is although I like to think of myself as a creative, I am not a visual creative. I can't create, designs or that kind of stuff. I'm almost illiterate when it comes to those things. So I rely on designers and people like that to help me grow my business and create the artwork that we run our ads for. The problem is when you go to a designer and say, I want a design, they then go, what do you want? And that can be the hardest part, is explaining to them what you want. Whereas now the starting point is we will look at obviously what's out there on like the ad libraries and so on, but we'll also put a prompt into a large language model, particularly ChatGPT, and go, create me an ad that does this, and this as a visual, because that's the kind of things I'm looking for. And it will give me a few starting points to work for, so that when I go to the designer, the human that's going to actually make the vision come true for me, we've already got rid of that awkward bit at the beginning, because I can give them a brief that's been used by the AI's helped me create, and a couple of visuals that kind of help me give them an idea of roughly what we're looking for. And then they can go away and they can create me something that fits that brief and is better and more professional and fits the brand more than maybe that initial idea we've had. So initial idea creation is a huge thing for us and how we use AI.
Yeah. And also there's an efficiency part as well here, isn't it? It helps you, spend less time having to brief a creative, which would cost more, right? And time as well as cost, right?
Exactly. And we get better results first time around in that first go round. So we get a better result and a better outcome. But I think the key takeaway for me here is that we're using it as part of the ideation process. We're not using it as part of the creation process. And that's where my line with AI kind of sits, is I think that where possible, we need to keep the bit that keeps us human in there. And add the spark on the end, because if we all just use these products to create stuff, then we'll all look the same, we'll all become boring, and we'll all become monotonous. So it's about using AI the right way. And for me, that's as a foundational stone of bringing an idea to life, not actually finishing the product.
And how would you kind of respond to critics who say AI makes marketing generic and soulless? Do you think it's true, or do you think it's kind of nuanced, Kristian?
I think most things in life are nuanced in some way, and marketing is no different. And I would agree with those critics that it has created a lot of terrible marketing content that's very boring, very monotonous, because we've always had that content. Now it's just much easier to scale. You've always been able to outsource to outside to countries, and get content that's very generic and sounds the same. You've always been able to do that. Now you can do that on an industrial scale where it's just pumping that out for pennies, and it all sounds the same. It's all monotonous because it's just write me a blog post about the construction industry, and it can give you a very generic blog post about the construction industry, right? So it's all about this combination for me of combining your expertise and being able to fast forward that using AI, rather than going, I'm just going to outsource my thinking, my creativity, and my creation to AI. Because if we do that, I think the real risk is that we create boring, monotonous content. And if you've ever been on LinkedIn, there's a ton of it on there if you want to see some examples.
There is some really bad stuff right now. On to you, Stuart. What's your kind of biggest bugbear or concern? I know you filled in my survey.
Yeah. And as I say, I have strong views. I think, the biggest problem for me, and I think, it's going to disappoint you to find that I agree with Kristian. I think he's spot on. I think that's the thing is using it intelligently. The biggest problem is the lack of common sense out there. There's so many people, and I don't want to criticize young people too much, but it does tend to be the younger generation who seem to just put their question in and accept the answer without any kind of question whatsoever. One of the biggest things, I had an application for a job recently, and it said, I'm so-and-so, currently studying blah, 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 with a strong interest in marketing, strategy and project-based work, which is all okay. And then it got to, I've been impressed by Limeslade's involvement in the RIDW opening reception and the second annual Gulf Mediation Roundtable. And I was like, hold on a minute, there's something a bit odd going on here. And I looked at it again and I was like, the wording's a bit odd. And we'd never been involved in the events that she'd mentioned. I was like, well, I've never even been to those events, never mind organised them. And I wrote back, I said, did you use AI at all for this? She's like, yeah, I thought it would make my application sound better. I said, but you didn't bother to check whether we'd actually had any involvement in the events that you've quoted in your thing. And it was just those sorts of things where the kids are just going, I believe the computer, I believe it. And it's like, no, just use your common sense, use a bit of discretion. And the people out there that are using it without any ability to sort of critically think, and that's the biggest problem with it.
I think your example is absolutely brilliant and also really shocking. Like, it takes seconds to actually go back and double check, right? I mean, that's the thing. It's like, did they actually do this? And because often I always find out with companies and stuff, you're like, that's not the same company or not the same person. Or as soon as you start checking back, you kind of need to do that kind of analysis, don't you? It's kind of like, yeah. So, Stuart, are there any kind of applications and ways that you're finding that you are using it and you're finding it useful?
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I was going to say is that there's an MIT study that came out just recently. In the preparation for this, I was reading The Guardian, as we do, and there's an article in there about AI making people, just before we get onto things that I think are acceptable, AI is making people lazy. And MIT have done this study where they split people into 3 groups. One of the groups had no AI, and the one had a bit, and one at the bottom was using all the AI. And the one at the bottom just eventually lost all abilities to think critically and all ability to use to use their own brains, essentially. So eventually your brain just goes to mush. So that's worth looking at. It's in. There's an article in The Guardian. If you Google it.
It was a few weeks ago. No, I did see it. Yeah, I did. And it was one of those things where it's like people were using, because if you don't have to think through a process and you don't know what good looks like in your own mind.
Eventually, you just stop thinking entirely.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is, it's got a limited number of verbs, it seems, as well. So, and I was looking that up, and that's the thing. It's like AI is going to have, since like, the large language thing is going to have limited number of verbs because it's working on a limited pool. So it very much, you end up, as Kristian said, with formulaic and emotionless copy, and emotion is the important thing. However, going back to your question about AI applications that are acceptable, I think they're all acceptable, and there are things that are great. There are some good stuff out there. I've used one a couple of days ago. One of our clients was doing a run down the River Thames, and I said, I could do something a little bit humorous to kind of raise a bit of money for his charity at a Just Giving thing and stuff like that. So we created a caricature of him using AI. It's like, can you create me a cartoon character of this guy with curly hair running down the Thames? And job done. It did it in a few seconds, and it was just a nice way to add something visual to the social media post that we did. So it's great for stuff like that. It's great for starting points. I love ChatGPT. If I got a complete mental block on an article I want to write, ideas, but then you've got to take it and run with it and use your own intelligence to actually put the content behind it.
And I guess one of the things that I know you touched on, Kristian, as well, was around that human connection and human touch. I mean, is there a way that AI can help us to build real connections?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's tons of different ways that these things exist and already do that. So whether that be analyzing scenarios or helping you role play things or just being that kind of assistant, it can help you understand the scariest thing to ever do at the moment is, because I use ChatGPT on a very regular basis, just ask ChatGPT, now it's got its extended memory, what do you know about me?
Oh, I've done that.
What are my biggest weaknesses? What are my biggest strengths? And some of that stuff is scary how accurate that is. And so you can, there's a software on LinkedIn called Crystal Knows, I think it's called, and it uses machine learning to basically analyze profiles and essentially do a mini disc profile on people based on their behaviors and how they interact and so on. So all the time, I think it gives you just insights. But I think what Stuart's talking about being lazy, it's about that. It's not about outsourcing your empathy or those kind of things to an AI. It's about just thinking, well, how do we do that? And the way I use AI the most, probably day to day, is responding to emails. I use a tool that, I have one that just categorizes and manages my emails for me, so I know which ones I have to respond to in a sea of spam. And I also am able to respond and go, look, because I write quite direct on email, apparently I can come across quite terse. So saying, this is my objective, this is what I want them to feel or what I want them to say, and getting a version of that isn't me just going, I want the thing, give me the thing.
So you use it to soften your tone, basically.
100%. And ask it questions like, how should I interpret this? Or am I missing something? That's often how I ask it with stuff, is like, am I missing something here? Because again, I can be a little bit too laser focused on what I want to achieve. And I'm like, but we're not doing that. Why is this not working? I'll go, well, because three emails ago, they made it very clear what they wanted, and you've just gone away on your own little sidetrack. So yeah, I think again, it's just providing an analytical friend rather than something. Yeah, it can't make you better at emotion, but it can certainly make you more attuned and understand a little bit more what's going on.
Are there ways that you think we can use AI to help us kind of, I guess, keep in touch with people and that emotional side, Stuart? Or do you reckon, nah, never?
It's difficult, isn't it? I'm not convinced it'll ever. That's a really interesting point from Kristian, though. Are you allowed to say what software it is you're using? What tools you're?
Yeah. There's a very, very popular startup, Fixer AI.
Oh, I keep getting ads for that at the moment.
I think I've seen
it's spelled weirdly. Well, yeah, they're really pushing it at the moment.
Yeah, FYXER. It's a very good piece of software. And one of the things it really excels at is conversations like these on Zoom. It's the best software I've had at sending out a summary. So it, like Fathom and others, it will have a note taker that will come into the room and kind of start taking notes, and it's incredible. Like, it is literally the best one I've seen for these are the stakeholders, this is what was discussed, this is the action points. And then it'll even give you a list of links at the bottom going, well, here's a link to the recording, here's a link to the transcript, here's a link to the highlights, and and it creates a little chat bot which you can then ask questions going, well, what happened here? So sometimes, just to see if it worked, I was like, how did I perform in this meeting? And it goes, well, this is what you did well, this is what you didn't do well, you know.
Right, we're a bit more delicate here.
And you have to kind of, with all AI, it's very positive. So you do have to kind of go, no, be critical. What didn't I do well? And it also timestamps each of the key points it makes. If you want to go watch it back and see what happens, you can do that. So, you know, I feel like I've turned into an infomercial for Fixer, but it's a very good piece.
Sorry, that's probably my fault. But that's the thing where it can be useful. It's just, but again, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were saying, young people, they'll lose the ability to make notes from meetings. That's the other thing. It's like, no, you actually do need this skill to actually sit in a meeting and be able to do it.
Why?
Well, good question. But I think I agree with them. Is they were saying, if you don't learn that manual skill of being able to take notes, you'll eventually start just accepting what the computer tells you. And that's the problem, is that you have to understand, as you just said, it's all very positive, so you have to adjust it slightly, and you have to understand the nuance in the language and the body language in the room at the time, because there's again, the point I think the person was making to me is that there was no point in us taking a junior member of staff into a meeting at all if they're just going to use AI to write the notes and not bother to even listen to it at all themselves. And it's a challenging thing.
No, it's an interesting one, Stuart. And I mean, I come from a place of bias because I haven't taken a meeting note in 2.5 years, and I don't intend to start. But I think you've hit the nail on the head where you're during the generational divide, that you and I are at a point of our career where we've got experience and we have been in those situations, and we do understand the nuance, I guess, of these meetings. But I know how, terrible my memory is. So even now, when I'm having casual conversations about work with people, I'll be like, no, I'm turning on the recorder, so letting them know so that I can come back to that piece. And I think you're right. Whilst I will never take a meeting note again, I do think you're right. It's how do we make sure that we build foundational skills for the workforce of the future so that they can work with these tools rather than rely on these tools.
Because that's the thing, you kind of sit there, it's like, I always think that thing going towards a cardless society. It's just great until the card system goes down, right? It's a cashless society, sorry. I mean, I do think it's that kind of thing. But I mean, for me, I have to write stuff down because I don't remember anything if I don't write stuff down. Like, it doesn't sink into my brain. If I just used AI solely, I wouldn't remember a single thing. And I've always been like that, and that's how my mind works. So I do think we're all going to be slightly different in terms of how we retain information and knowledge as well. So it's a really interesting one. I personally couldn't just record all my calls, even though I do that, and then not write anything.
That's an interesting point as well, because I'm one of these weird people who insists on typing everything. I don't write anything, because if I write notes by hand, nothing ever survives. It's like, firstly, I can't read my own writing.
I can't either, don't worry.
I'll lose the paper. And so everything has to be typed. So and that's it. It's different horses for different courses, isn't it? As well, sort of, what works for Kristian might not work for me. What works for you might not work. It's that kind of Annie has notebooks everywhere, and Annie that I work with, she's full of notebooks. But then sometimes she forgets a notebook, and I'm like, haha, let me just open up my laptop. So yeah.
So I guess in a way, like, these AI tools are giving us more options, right? They're giving us more options to choose from. So I think there is that thing of actually it's a bigger suite it's a bigger toolkit we've all got now, isn't it? And you choose the bits that you want to adopt and use and how you build out how you work.
Exactly it. Yeah. And that's it. And it needs to be, I've written this in my notes, it needs to be a tool, not the be all and end all, not the only solution. You just have to add it as a tool and use it carefully and use it with critical thinking. Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, Kristian, did you want to say something? You did look like.
Yeah, I was just going to say that there's 2 points to make. One is I'm always drawn to, there's an IBM poster that was on the wall in the 70s that they had to remind their employees, which is like, a computer will never be responsible for anything. It will never be able to hold it accountable. So it's a poster that was on the IBM walls. And that applies to AI as much as it does to to anything else. And the second point is the challenge that kind of we're going to find as marketers now is there are so many tools being released, some of which are genuinely game changing, some of which are just ChatGPT wrappers, but they're all being promoted. And it's like, well, how do we build our own toolkits to allow us to make the right decisions and get the best out of it? Because I think I've seen these charts of all the tools that are out there, and there are literally tens of thousands of now that you could potentially use. It's how do we find the ones and kind of check them and kind of sense check the use case to use the ones that actually help us, rather than just feel like we're doing something with AI because we're using this tool.
Are you a practice leader who isn't getting the industry profile that you deserve? I often hear from practices who do brilliant work but aren't actually getting the visibility they need to get business through the door. Practices that influence the sector aren't necessarily the best at design. They're often better at positioning their expertise and getting it seen and valued by those with budgets. I'm Io Abbas, and for 24 years, I've helped leading built environment firms build the recognition and authority that their expertise deserves. Drop me a line at io@abbasmarketing.com, which is AYO at ABBASmarketing.com, to set up a call where we can talk about how I can help you get a strategy and plan in place to get you to where you deserve to be. What's interesting is I was looking at the survey data from what I've done so far, and out of, say, 72 people, the majority of people were using ChatGPT, like 87% of them. And then it's Claude, like a third of them were then also using Claude. But apart from that, it was tiny in terms of like what different tools people were doing. And I don't know, I guess people are just using the main ones and not necessarily exploring some of the kind of newer ones as they come out. I guess people don't, if they have the time, do they have the inclination to do that? I guess that's the thing, isn't it?
I think they're using tools that are using AI without necessarily realizing it as well. So they may be the external tools that they're paying for. But for example, if you've got Google Workspace now, it has a summary of the email chain that you're in as a standard. And so that's an AI generated summary that's there. If you're using
Microsoft Copilot,
you've got Copilot and you've got pieces in there, but also you go on Google Maps, that's all AI, machine learning, pieces like that. You're using any number of different tools that you use in your day-to-day. They're all Canva, for example. They're all now adding in AI or have had elements of particularly machine learning in them for a very long time. It's just now we know what to call it. Grammarly being the classic example. That is just one massive machine learning algorithm that's learning what's right and what's wrong and then providing you suggestions based on that. And then the other tool that I love that I think doesn't get as much love as it should is just Notebook LM. Absolutely love that. So you can upload a document and it'll give you a summary of it, but you can also upload it as a podcast. If you're an Audible learner, you can it'll create a 20-minute podcast based with two AI voices talking through the idea to kind of help you. I use that again every day when it comes to if I've got a pitch meeting or something like that, I'll upload the conversations we're having and it'll give me an overview. So there's hundreds, if not thousands of tools out there. I think we've all got to think, well, let's not just use ChatGPT. Let's build use cases, work out the problems we're solving, and then work out what software and tools we're going to use.
That's a good point. That is a very good point. And how do you feel about AI voices? I find them really weird still. I have listened to podcasts where they do that, when they're two things talking to each other. I think I listen to Social Media Marketing World, that their podcast, and I was like, oh God, that really creeped me out. I don't know what it is. As a podcaster, I was slightly freaked out. I mean, they are sounding a lot better now though, but it's just the slight intonations were slightly weird. I don't know what it was. I just found it weird.
Yeah, well, Michael and the Social Media Examiner team are very much trying to be at the forefront of going on with marketing and AI, and that podcast is definitely worth a listen to kind of get some insight into what tools are out there. So if you're looking for inspiration for tools, I know on the website and their resources, they recommend a ton of them, and they're a bit more battle tested because they're using them themselves, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're being done by marketers. So if you were looking at a resource to recommend, Social Media Examiner definitely would be one I'd recommend to take a gander at.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what happens with junior marketers going forward if AI is kind of doing a lot of the kind of early stage, more grunty style tasks? Stuart, do you want to go first?
Well, I think it goes back to what I was saying. I think you've got to give junior people the opportunity to think. That's the biggest thing. It's like we've got a young person working with us now, and again, she can be quite reliant on AI. You know, and it's everywhere, as you say. It's not just you get it whether you like it or not, and you don't realize. You know, Google's search results immediately you get the little AI generated, as they call it. You know, their little no click search results. So it's everywhere, and you have to constantly just remind her, well, is that right, or are you looking at something that's not quite right? And it's just constantly encouraging young people just to think. And we're so lucky, I think, to have lived through the kind of era where we've got all this technology, but we also had the previous bit where it wasn't there. As old people like we are, I don't know if everyone's as old as me, but
no,
you know,
it turns out I'm 10 years older than Kristian. We found out before we got on this call.
So
I'm nearing 50.
And we're the lucky ones, I think, and we've got to remember these. You know, I do think, you know, it must be hard if you're just constantly bombarded with it, and that's your life and all you've ever known. Where we don't, you know, we have the ability and the opportunity to understand what happened before that. So yeah, just got to keep helping the young people and helping junior people to get those opportunities to do the entry level tasks, so that the computers don't just replace them all. You know, that's been a long thing. That's been a thing that's going on for years. Certainly my legal clients that I have, you know, they've been worried for years that the juniors would be out of a job, because a lot of that legal stuff in the first few years of your job is basically photocopying and reading stuff. And a computer can do that very easily. But yeah, I don't know if
I was going to say some of them are really good. And you, Kristian, how about you about what we should be doing with more junior level marketers?
Yeah, whilst there's a genuine concern across every industry, from coding to marketing to about what happens when entry level or kind of more or less automated processes disappear, and how people make that jump from entry level to mid level to senior. I think we've got to remember that we're just at the start of this kind of commercial revolution when it comes to AI and it being in the public sphere. We are, if we look at where we were with the internet, the last major shift we saw with how things work, we're in 1995, but for AI. It feels like we've gone through this rapid change and everything's happening, but we're still at the point where people are on tomorrow's world going, look, here's a website where you can buy something, and one day this will be commerce of the future. And other businesses going, no. I can never imagine a world where people buy their books or their
have stuff delivered
or their consumables or their shopping and online and how that works. We're very much at that 95, 96, 97 point of that revolution. We haven't got to the bubble yet that bursts and then we find practical uses. On the Gartner hype loop, we're still on the upswing of the hype bit. We haven't got to the point where it evolves and becomes more mature and we know whether it's happening. So yes, it's concerning for that skill thing, but these kids are going to grow up as AI natives, just as I would consider myself fortunate enough to be a digital native, where I was kind of 13, 14 when e-commerce and things like that went native. So, you know, smartphones became a thing. So therefore, it's always been something I'm aware of. You know, Facebook was founded when I was at university. So it's kind of always been something that's part of my adult life. And that's given me an advantage over, with respect to the people in the room, to the people maybe slightly older that haven't been digital native.
A mere slip of a boy.
Have to make that transition. These kids are going to grow up with an AI advantage, because you're painting it or it has been painted by many as a disadvantage. When this technology gets to the next level, these kids are going to grow out of it, and they're already teenagers in their bedrooms becoming millionaires because of what they're doing with AI. And just as there were kids that did that to become millionaires with the internet and the digital revolution. So I'm not worried about the kids. I think that they will ride this boat and they will be much better suited to survive the storm than
grey-haired people.
than
old. Yeah. Is it? We are the old people now. It's terrible.
Damn it! It's not fair. But I have to admit, that's a good point. I mean, when I look at my 10-year-old and ChatGPT, he gets it, man. He gets it like straight away. And he's always like, how come I haven't got this on all my computer stuff? And all because he just really enjoys it. And the way he approaches it and tackles it, it's like, this is completely normal. So yeah, they don't have that barrier, I guess, isn't it? It's like, this is just normal and every day.
But to draw the parallel to the digital revolution, what we need to do, which didn't really happen with the internet revolution, is we need to teach the kids the responsibility bit. The internet was allowed to just run like wildfire and, for amazing good, but also amazing bad. The way that kids accessing and will putting their digital profiles online at young ages and the kid that makes his England debut for the England cricket team, but then also has to apologize for a tweet he made when he was 12. That kind of thing. We need to be educating our children about the way AI works, the pitfalls, the growth, and kind of how to navigate that space in a safe, ethical, moral, and productive way, because this technology is going to evolve faster than we can regulate it. So we need to look at how can we morally teach our children and the next generations to navigate this space, and hopefully they'll be able to do it better than generations did with the millennials did with the internet, because we still haven't really figured that one out.
And you know what? I don't think it's going to come from schools. Schools are so far behind. It's insane. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, what you're teaching you at school and about AI and stuff, it's just nowhere near there. So yeah, it's a really interesting, that's a good point, but it's probably going to come from people in the industry and things like that, because I just don't see schools or anything like that doing it personally.
Well, that's going to be the bit with your junior where you sit them down and you go, welcome to the company. Here's a crash course in how we use AI and how we expect you to use it, and being upfront and honest about that.
Yeah, and there are places. I mean, I know we had an intern last summer who worked with us for a few weeks, and they had a course at university on how to use AI effectively, and that because I think the students at his university had been using AI, and the lecturers had gone, oh shit, we ought to teach these people how to do it properly rather than just worry about it. Actually grab it and go, actually, yeah, we'll learn it and we'll teach you how to make the most of it. And he was phenomenal. He taught us so much in the few weeks he was with us, because he just understood it and he knew what he was doing. So as you say, yeah, that learning piece and that understanding how to do it is so important. Yeah,
I will just very quickly shout out Nottingham Trent University, because I've lectured there and they've very much taken the approach you mentioned there, Stuart, of, I was actually teaching at the point where students were starting to use it, and when it was kind of, you can't use it, but they very quickly, rapidly changed on and evolved their position quite quickly and added that training and that development in, because I think they realized that, I'll be honest, I was using it to mark stuff, so it was only natural that the students were going to be using it.
It's quite an interesting one, though, isn't it? Because a lot of businesses do have a no AI type policy, don't they? And like you say, it's like, how do you stop it? Because people will just be using it on the down low and not tell you, which to me is a far bigger risk.
Bans always struggle, because there's always a way around the ban. So I'd much rather companies have clear policies and encourage and build, even if they build their own AI large language models that lock down a lot of that stuff that talking about, it would be much safer for a company to build their own version of AI or a large language model using one of these that's locked down in a way that makes it safe, has all the preloaded bits about their business and brand in it, than it would be to go, we're going to ban it and then watch them put all their sensitive information about the company into ChatGPT on their phone without us having any visibility on where that data is going or how it's being used.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree on that. Okay, so where do we think marketing will be in 5 years with the rise of AI, Stuart? What's your crystal ball?
Oh, in my original answer to this, I said, I just wrote dead until someone fixes it, but I don't think that's true. That's not fair, is it? It's not fair. It's not.
No.
I think Kristian's convinced me. I think it's here to stay. it's going to learn and it'll evolve and it'll become far better. Hopefully it won't replace everything. There's a guy called Andy Owen, who's like a copywriter, he makes us look young. He's been around for a long time. But he used to work with Ogilvy and all the big agencies. And he did a little thing a few weeks ago where he'd asked AI if he would ever be replaced by AI. And AI had responded to him and said, no, I don't think I'll ever replace you. So even AI doesn't think it will replace us all. So who knows? Who knows where we'll be in 5 years? I think hopefully in a lot better place, because it'll have settled down and everything will be working a lot better, and people will be a lot less they'll be a lot more critical and able to understand and use it better, because we'll have all learned how to do so. So yeah, I think, who knows where we'll be in 5 years, but hopefully AI will be better and will be helpful, a lot more helpful than it is now. Fingers crossed.
And Kristian, where do you think the world of marketing will be?
I think that's an impossible question to ask. If we look at the transformation we've seen in sort of
2 years,
to predict that far out, and the pace of change, I think, is going to be rapid. But we're going to see some innovation steps, but also going to see a lot of missteps. We're going to see people thinking they can do things with this software before it's ready, and it not happen. But the changes are already afoot. People, the number of copywriters being hired or jobs posted on Upwork, for example, for copywriters has dropped 30% in the last 12 months. That is a natural thing that's happened because of AI and the existence of that. But I think that marketing's about creating connection and emotion and communicating, and I think that is still going to exist in the short to medium term, and the ability for companies to get across their message to the right people at the right time and collaborate on that is always going to be there. I don't think AI is close to being able to kind of wholesale take over and just go, okay, we're going to give that to the AI and that'll do it. But it's going to evolve, and I think that the smart marketer is going to be out there figuring out those steps and making sure that whether they work in-house or they're outsourced, that they're providing that guidance to the people they work with and the companies they're working for to kind of hold their hand and bring them through that process and being at the front. Because where I wouldn't want to be is if you're under the age of kind of say 60, I wouldn't want to be going, AI is not going to affect me. I'm just going to plod on and do my thing and hope for the best, because you might get away with that if you're kind of nearing the end of your career. But if you're like me, 40, AI is going to be a big part of the next 20 years of my life. I hope it's going to be good. I hope it's going to have a positive impact, but we never know. I've seen wildly varying estimates on that. So I'm going to take the optimist camp and go, in 5 years' time, marketers will be using AI to create stunning outcomes for their clients faster, but they'll be retaining the individuality. The successful ones will keep the individuality and the emotion that humans can provide to the marketplace, and we're all going to be fine.
Ah, that positive note. Thank you both. Really enjoyed that. Hope you did too.
Yeah, it's really good. I think, I just agree. I mean, it's really disappointing. I hoped I was going to fall out with Kristian and we we're going to have totally opposing views, but I think he's right. It's just, you have to adapt and you have to change over time, don't you? The people who don't get left behind, and that's it. You've just got to adapt.
That's exactly it.
Use the tools, yeah.
And did you move the age ceiling to 60 just to make sure we were covered?
I must have, that was more a case of, I think that you probably can eke out a career for another 5 years, being
plus they keep moving all the pension things. By the time you get there, blimey, you'll be like 75.
I don't think I'll ever retire. I don't think that's going to be I don't think that's going to be the way it works anymore. I think people will enter a phase of lower economic output where they maybe work part-time.
Just tick along.
I think a lot of people do that anyway, don't they? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we're already in that stage. I know loads of people who get to 65 and become consultants and will go back and do bits and pieces. It's not, absolutely.
Yeah, pressure off. Just use my expertise rather than
and do the stuff you really want to do. That's for sure. Well, thank you both. I really enjoyed that.
Awesome.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Built Environment Marketing Show. Don't forget to check out the show notes, which will have useful links and resources connected to this episode. You can find that on abbasmarketing.com. And of course, if you like the show, please do share it with others on social, as it helps more people to find us. See you soon.